Good morning and namaskar, everyone, and welcome to this Indica Books 1000 Reviewers Club 2022 launch. My name is Abhinav Agarwal, and I am delighted to welcome all of you to this launch event. We have a spectacular array of guest authors who have joined us, as well as we have the person who's the brain and the driving force behind this entire initiative also with us. So, without further ado, let's do a quick round of introductions, and then I will hand over the mic to, so to say, to Sri Harikiran Vadlamani. So, we are here to talk about the Indica Books 1000 Reviewers Club 2022 launch. As the name suggests, this is an initiative by Indica and Indica Books to reach out to 1000 reviewers by way of sending them 5 books over the course of a year for them to receive at no charge. And the only obligation that we ask of these reviewers is that they provide us with the reviews of the books that they receive. Before we get into that, now let me turn this over to Sri Harikiran Vadlamani, who, as I said, has been the driving force, the patron, the vision behind this and so many other initiatives from Indica and Indica Books. Harikiranji, my pleasure.
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you very much. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. This whole exercise of sending books started in 2015, August. We set up Indic Academy on 2nd April, and we started sending out books in August. And initially, the audience to whom we were sending were columnists in some of these digital platforms. We started with about 70, 80 people, and then slowly the number grew. And that has been the journey. And over the last 7 years, we had been fortunate to send about 16,000 books over the last 7 years. But the attempt to, but these are all within a sort of within a mail group and some kind of a curated list of people. But we wanted to increase it to a larger audience. And that's how this idea of 1000 Reviewer Club has emerged, wherein we initiated a small process of sharing of our Indic pledge and inviting people whom we don't know to be members of this club. And the response to the, 1000 is a very large number. We are all in our own cocoons, but just to get 1000 people whom we didn't know earlier is a very large number. And we had more than 1,300 people who applied, and they are the recipients of the books that we started giving. So now this is the second edition, and this is how we have progressed. The larger objective in this whole thing is that at a very fundamental level, reading, if you want to change the narrative, it starts with reading. That's the first step. And there's no easy way out. You have to make an effort. So reading, then writing reviews, then writing articles, then writing monographs and writing books, or participating in an anthology, and then writing your own books. This is a progress that one can make. So if you want to move from 280 words on Twitter to a book, there is an effort that has to be put. And we always believe that it starts with reading of good books. The journey within Indica Books and Indic Academy was, first we did in 2016, we did 2 writers' retreats. One for public intellectuals in January 2016, and one in April 2016, when all the rock stars, today's rock stars, are all discovered or debuted. We have Rahul, who was also a debutant in 2016 at that retreat. Vivek was there, Anand was there, Sanjeev was there. So quite a few people, Jaggi, were there at that workshop in Bangalore. And since then, we have progressed to where we are today. The way we go about is a very intuitive process. We see what's happening and visit the publishers' websites and select the books which we feel are in nature. Abhinav does that. Sai suggests. I do that. We also get requests from people, and then we select the books. So if you see the number of books, we have 70 authors, more than 86 books that we have in the last 1 year given. It's a fairly eclectic range of books. We also have authors whom we don't know at all. So it's not just authors that we know personally. Like, for example, we have distributed a lot of international authors. And that is, that again, if you see, there is a movement which is sort of dying down, I guess, of intellectual dark web. Where, and there's quite a lot of books that are written in the last few years. And I have actually selected more than 30 such books that have been written. And it's our endeavor that we have a intellectual dark web, so to speak. So if you see Rahul's book, for example, is a very good example of the perspective of what is really happening when elites control the narrative. I wouldn't call it left or right or liberal or conservative, but basically I would say, I would use the word elite because they have chosen that to believe that they are different from the society, and therefore they have the right to comment and do what they do. So we are seeing. I would say Rahul's book, I would say, is a inflection point, so to speak. Vivek's book is, again, specifically I'm talking about the content of those books, again is an inflection point in terms of putting the lens on the elites and how they view the narrative and how they control the narrative. Of course, there are a lot of genres, like what Nandini has done, what Vikrant does, what Sai does. So there is a certain other genres that has developed. But overall, and of course, highly researched pieces that what Vikram has come up with, and what Sai Deepak has recently written. So we have if you take a step back and look at what is the output that the dharmics or the non-left, the non-elites have written, and take a step back, I would say there has been a change. Now, if you go to the airports and generally have a look at what's happening, just 4 years back, you could see a different list of books on the shelves. But now you can clearly see that more and more people are taking up to writing books. And we are happy to play a role in this. We do a number of workshops. We give master classes. Every week we conduct an open house with a professor from Stanford. So we have given more than 500 scholarships in association with Notion Press. So basically, improving the writing skills is a very, very important strategy for us. That this is the starting point, and before that, reading, and then the easy low-hanging fruit is to just write a review. A 200-word, 300-word review is a first journey from a Twitter tweet to writing something concrete, because you've read something and you are writing. So this initiative of 1,000 Reviews Club, for us, it's a very, very important initiative. And Abhinav has been a curator for Indie Book Club for quite some time. and he's been at it. We had Dimple Call also involved with Indigo Club and Indic. She was involved in more than 40 Indic chats. Now Abhinav is doing every week author Q&A. So we have progressed with the involvement of volunteers who are establishing relationship with authors, encouraging them to write. So this has been a good progress. One important thing that we have done is also to start an anthology series. And that has been a very successful endeavor, where again, we are encouraging people, you don't need to write a full book, but at least write a short story. So we have already published a best-selling anthology. Then 4 more anthologies are in the pipeline. So therefore, encouraging people from writing reviews to posts on various platforms or to write short stories. That's a step that we are taking. And we will continue to do that in terms of encouraging anthologies. So on an overall basis, this initiative of 1000 Reviewer Club is a very important initiative from our perspective. And I thank Abhinav for being very consistently hanging in there, and Sai also supports him. So it's been a very, very useful journey. I just want to make it our backend logistics, Srinivas and Koti and Praveen at our office. There are things like, we pack them, we put the cellophane kind of a thing, plastic thing. And then the post office next to our office won't take more than 30 books every day. So even though we want to keep sending books, we have a clog in the pipeline that we can't. And these are some of the challenges we face. But the backend team is fantastic, and they do a great job. And so it has been a very, very meaningful journey personally. The couple of points I wanted to highlight. One was that there was one anonymous person who knew about this Indica books, and he felt that we're trying to do some propaganda. I normally don't. I respond to anonymous people, but I just want to say that this is not like when we were children. There was a magazine from US called Span magazine, and there was a magazine from Russia, which was some other magazine which we used to get. Very nice glossy books that magazines used to get. I never understood why and how I was at the receiving end of those books in Guntur. But it was nice to receive these kind of magazines. When I look back, that definitely was propaganda. Here, this is to counter the propaganda. We are doing this. Our intention is not to create any specific narrative, except the fact that we want to encourage people to write better. So, and the other point was we were accused of being patriarchal in our choices of authors. I don't know whether that's true. At the range of books, the 70 authors that are there, I see quite a few women authors there. So I'm not sure why we received that accusation. But so the evidence is there, very much there. So I just wanted to respond to these 2 things. And I thank all of you for being part of this. And Rahul, thank you very much. Vikrant, Nandini, thank you very much. Chelama, Sai, thank you. And Abhinav, thank you very much. Please, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hariji, for your comments. And for those of you, who are watching this, let me admit, I do my best to make life miserable for Hariji, and he still puts up with me, which is a testament to his patience. So not all old men are curmudgeonly, right? Some of them are very nice. So I have to thank him for that. I, on the other hand, have no such illusions. As I get older, I will keep, getting closer and closer to my Twitter personality. But till that happens, let's talk a little bit about the 1000 Reviewers Club. So as Hariji said, we started the first edition of this in November 2020. We called it the 2021 1000 Reviewers Club, but we actually started this in November 2020. And by approximately November 2021, 1 year later, we had completed sending 5,000 books. When I say 5,000, I really mean the number 5000 books to more than 1,000 people who had signed up. Now, even though it was the 1000 Reviewers Club, we ended up sending books to more than 1,000 people for a variety of reasons, right? Some people who signed up didn't put their correct addresses, or their address changed and the books were returned by the post office. So then we put them on hold, and then we went further down the list of people who had signed up, and so on. And we started getting reviews. We ended up getting, I haven't tallied the final count, but we ended up getting literally hundreds and hundreds of reviews from these. Uh, so we have tweeted, we have put them on Facebook, every single review that we got. One important point to note was that we didn't ask people that they send in only positive laudatory reviews. That was not the intent. If someone didn't like a book, they were more than free to excoriate the book in their reviews, provided they did this in a cogent, rational, coherent manner. And not just say that I don't like this book, I don't like the author, this author is XYZ of ideology, so therefore I'm giving this a 1 star. That is the equivalent of a troll review. That is not a meaningful, helpful review. Uh, so among all the reasons why we started this, one was also that please note that good readers can make good writers. Good writers can make good reviewers. Good reviewers in turn can become good writers. So it's a very, very virtuous cycle out there. From the point of view of an author also, I think there are lots and lots of takeaways from this. But for that, I will now turn this over to Sai, who has perhaps had the most interesting journey as a writer, as an author among, I think, all of us. She started out with self-publishing her spectacular first book, Abhaya. And I still remember she had reached out in late 2015 through Twitter. So unlike what most people might say, that Twitter is a place that only encourages trolls and negative behavior, I think if used properly, Twitter has got a lot of benefits and use to it. Of course, it is all up to us how we make use of it. So she reached out, I read the book, and I was simply blown away by how someone could write such compelling Puranic fiction. And then almost every year she came out with another book, and then she got a mainstream publisher, so to say. And Draupadi was published by Rupa, which was followed then by Rukmani, which is a stunning book. And then she found time to also curate an anthology that Hariji talked about, Unsung Valors from the Kurukshetra War, of the warriors from the Kurukshetra War. Rahul and Nandini have, they are Nandini has been writing for many years, and very, very highly regarded, well respected author. Rahul came up with his first book. He shares that after it took him a long time to write it, but you wouldn't say that this was a first-time author writing. We all know that from his online writings and articles that Rahul is a very, very articulate person, but to write a 1,000, 2,000 word essay and then to write a full 70, 80,000 word book is quite a different matter. And it was simply like I had the good fortune of interviewing Rahul I believe last year, and I wanted to share this with you, Rahul, that reading your book was like sitting down with a good friend over a cup of tea or coffee and hearing him talk about, regale us with anecdotes. That's the way the book flowed. And I'm very, very glad, both I as well as Indica Books got the opportunity to send this book to our reviewers. So I do want us to hear from all of you on your experiences, both as writers, as authors, as someone whose books have been distributed by Indica Books, and you have a lot of knowledge, insight, and experience to share. So I will turn this over to Sai now.
Namaste, Srimatre Namaha. Thank you for this. Thank you, Indica, for this whole opportunity, as well as the hand holding throughout this 6-year-old journey. And on behalf of Indica, thank you, reviewers who all are attending and who are being a part of a positive revolution in transforming the narrative. It's not about changing the narrative or fighting the narrative, but we are transforming the narrative towards something positive from a civilizational perspective, and that in turn, which is contributing to strengthening the society and not creating divide like our detractors are actually doing and but accusing us of doing. So yes, with these opening words, I would like to narrate my own personal journey along with Indica. I started writing my book sometime in 2013. I know a lot of you might know my journey, but sometime in 2012-13, I had started writing, and I had wrapped up my first draft. Of course, like a typical first draft, it had a million faults, and then I was advised to hire a literary agent who gave a lot of advice about what kind of stories the publishers expect, and what do they want the new authors to have, so that they can make them bestsellers and all those things. And he started influencing the rewrite of my draft in such a way that not even halfway through the whole rewriting process, I felt so disconnected with my own story, and lost interest in writing. And then one fine day, I just started wondering, why am I doing this if I'm just hating the whole process, and is publishing so important to me that I change my own story. The whole deliberation kind of made me review the way my literary agent was influencing me. Then I went to his social media profile. I was politically opinionated, but not in the way like people do it on social media 24/7. So I was not aware that there is there's a political stranglehold. There was a political stranglehold on the world of publishing. This we are talking about 2013, early 2013. So then I found a lot of his posts very politically angry, motivated, and I don't know, with a very limited, narrow-minded view of the society. Okay, political opinions are given, but a very narrow-minded view of society, family, and a lot of things which common Indian holds dear. Right, and so that experience just made me cut my relationship with him, and I thought, okay, I mean, not getting published, it's fine, but I'm not going to lend my name to another damaging, narrative being peddled out there. Then, after a very long writer's block, Destiny took me to London, and I started reviving my passion of writing there. Yes, I learned a lot by reading other books, books by other Indian bestselling authors, Amish ji, and then the classics like K.M. Munshi ji. And whatever I learned, I tried to put it back into practice. I got introduced to a very dynamic indie independent author communities there, and I learned a lot from them. And finally, I put my another, the next draft together. And this time, instead of again going through the same cycle of agent, publisher, and subjecting myself to the whole trauma again, I just decided to self-publish and then I hired an editor who helped me hone the manuscript, the craft elements, the basic elements, at least we honed, and to our possible extent, we made the manuscript look much better than it was. And then I hit publish on Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, which is the biggest self-publishing portal even today. And as if it was a divine blessing that happened in my journey. in the same year, 2015, Indica Academy started this Indic Book Club initiative, in which I got associated. I call that a huge blessing, because it was like the moment I got published, and in the following months, there was a lot of support pouring out from the members of Indic Book Club then. And yes, as Hariji had mentioned, we were a closed email group, which was quite growing, quite bigger even then. A lot of support poured in from the members of Indica as well as Indica itself. And Hariji had reached out to me saying, just a digital version won't do. Why don't you go for a short print run or something like that? And he, in fact, offered to buy 150 copies up front if I could invest in a print run. And actually, the money that Indica supported me with financed the whole of the short print run of 500 copies. And because of Indica, I could bring out the first paperback edition of Abhaya. And that was a turning point in my life, and that gave me a lot of confidence to trudge on and start with my second book and continue the same process. And then yes, Abhinav rightly noted, Rupa Publishers came up with their own commissioned offer, and then even very recently, because of my association with Indic Academy, Bloomsbury reached out to me to acquire all 3 self-published books of mine, and this is the newer form, the recently launched form of Abhaya, from the a lot different from my self-published print run. So a lot of wonderful things have happened to me solely because of my association with Indic Academy. And I consider Indic Academy as as that kind of soil which nurtured me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there anywhere in the scene. That is as true as it can get, as real as it can get. And that is my author's side of being a beneficiary of Indica books. And then the whole organization, as as Abhinav recounted, as Hariji recounted, we developed from being just distributing books to creating reading communities, creating author communities. Yes, that anthology was another great experience of trying to mentor as well as handhold other upcoming authors. At least for my part, I wanted to ensure at least some authors, some aspiring authors out there need not have such long journey before they got their first book published, like I had. And it has been a very satisfactory experience. And through our anthologies initiative, like we launched Unsung Valor 2019 October, and within a year, we 2 of our the anthology participants came up with their own books. Deepak Rao, he came up with Abhimanyu, which was again published by Bloomsbury, and Ranjit Radhakrishnan had come up with his first novel on Parashurama, which would have been published by Westland, but I think, the story is so compelling that I think with Westland closing down, he'll be getting another publisher soon. And I am also proud to see that a couple more authors have come up with their own drafts. And that way, Indica has been so active in nurturing and in finding new voices, right? And away from the whole elitist partisan voices that we keep seeing in the normal bookstores and all. We are so proud to have identified new voices, nurtured them, and got their journey, the whole journey kick-started. That way, it's so fulfilling to have been associated with Indica Books. And yes, this 1,000 Reviewer Club has made a lot of difference to not just me, and I think the other authors here concur with me. To have your book discussed on social media within the first 2-3 months of its launch gives a great morale booster to an author, because an author who has written the book and has just published it is like a young mother who has just given a birth to the baby. She has she is kind of proud but also fatigued. So, and she needs all the support, right? And it's the same thing with an author who has just launched his book. So just seeing the picture of the cover of the book floating in the social media with all these reviews happening without having to spend lakhs and lakhs on those PR initiatives that a lot of these marketing agents do. And I actually got an offer from a marketing agent saying they would be sending my book to so many newspaper news portals and some book bloggers, and uh, have it posted on social media. And then they were charging about some, they had a 3 months package which totaled up to some 2 lakhs. And almost all of those that they mentioned have been a part of our Indica Books initiatives. We have active reviewers who write long reviews, and they get posted in Indic Today. And people like Abhinav, they write reviews of those 800-word long reviews, and they take initiative to get it published in other friendly portals like the New Indian Express, the Guardian. I think Nitin Sridhar reviews in the Guardian, right?
Sunday Guardian.
Sunday Guardian, yeah. So we have like a lot of enthusiastic authors who also review each other's books and prop up each other in whatever media outlet that they can they can give. And the whole resonance that is happening within the community is something so inspiring. So yes, Abhinav.
So, Sai, on that note, I want to open this up to all. And looking at the authors, it's a very different journey that each one has taken, right? You started from self-publishing to mainstream publishing. Vikrant started with the translations of some, classic works, then into, corporate biographies, and then he co-authored along with Nilesh Kulkarni the spectacular book In the Footsteps of Rama. Rahul, you have had a very different sort of a journey from, starting out in the traditional broadcasting industry to starting a satire website, to starting a news portal, to becoming an author. Nandini ji, you have had a very, distinguished journey as an author on non-fiction, and then you branched out into fiction with your, with your trilogy. I want to ask each one of you this question that, and this is something that many people ask online, that how do I begin writing? And it is not just a very specific question. It's a very, as you can imagine, it's a very broad question, but it means if I get a book, how do I review it? Because I can tell you, more than 20 years back when I first started reviewing books, I literally sat in front of the computer for an hour and I could not type more than 50 words, and I immediately deleted it. That's how bad it felt. And I gave up reviewing for a few years. Then I again started. So I can completely empathize with that part. How do I begin writing a review? Number one. Number two, how do I, if I like writing, how do I start writing an article, a book? A book, as I said, is very different from writing a short piece or even a long form. And the third one is, how do I write a review? People ask, how do I write a review that is actually useful? Because it can either be very, one-line-ish, that I don't like this book, I don't like this author, I don't like his or her face, I don't like anything in life, therefore I don't like this book. Or it can be, I'm going to put a summary of the book, which is definitely useful in its own right, but it doesn't become quite a review, so to say. And how do I write something that is not 2,000 words long? How do I make, say, for instance, a review in 400, 500, 800 words, concise and useful and relevant enough? So there are these three questions that I just asked. Any one of you want to take that up in any particular order? The floor is all yours. Nandini ji, please, you're on mute.
Namaskar, and first of all, thank you so much, Abhinav, Sai, and a big thank you to Indica for helping authors like us, authors who write about, particularly authors who write about history, Puranas, Itihasa, and are trying to give um, a window into our past that is not tinged with self-hatred, and that looks at um, our heritage and our journey as a civilization with the respect that it deserves. I'm going to straight away take up the first part of what Abhinav was talking about. How do you start writing? And particularly, how do you write a review? I am very privileged to hold a creative writing class as well in Pondicherry with the Sri Aurobindo International School. And this is something that I talk to my students about. See, when you give the summary of a book, that is not a review, because essentially what you are doing in many cases is giving out spoilers as well. So yes, by all means mention that, for instance, this book is about, I can see in the footsteps of the Rama, the beautiful book. It is about Rama's journey, and it is a geographical marker of Rama's journey. Just one or two lines, not a summary of the book. Because what happens is that if you do not give the summary correctly, you may be putting off potential readers of the book. So, what then should the review be? Ultimately, all literature is about your personal reaction, how you react to a book, and I agree that ultimately it is a personal thing. It is not it is absolutely not objective. It has to be subjective, but it has to be logically subjective. For instance, I will give you an example. I was told that I should read Cormac McCarthy because he's also because he's a very famous historical fiction writer. And I read Blood Meridian and I hated it. I can say it without flinching that I hated it, because that level of gratuitous violence and bloodlust is something that I found traumatic as a reader. If that is the case, if you have a logical reason why a book is not resonating with you, by all means articulate it. That's your review. Period. I do not like this book because I do not agree with the way a particular portion of the book has expressed itself, or the worldview that the book gives, or maybe the language is not something that I like, or maybe the images are not something that have resonated with me. Please make it very clear this is subjective and you do not agree. That's a review. As a bookworm myself, all through my life, what I would do is when I'm reading a book, and particularly a book that grips me, and sometimes even when it doesn't, I would keep scribbling notes on the side. Most recently, I did that with Ashoka, Alan Seeley's book. Again, Alan Seeley is a writer I have hugely admired in the past, but was definitely underwhelmed by when I read Ashoka. I knew that I was taking on a huge name like Alan Seeley. He's a very, very well-known writer. But as a reader, I have every right to be underwhelmed. And when I'm backing it with, and I was backing it with historical logic. My point was that his Ashoka is just a trope Ashoka. It is very far away from the historical Ashoka. That's my logic. So what I'm saying is that when you're reading the book, if you jot down notes, points where when you were reading, you find, hey, this is not working, or this is not right, or I don't like this, or I love this. This part is beautiful. This part is excellent. This is exactly how I thought it would be. Just jot it down, so that when you finish the book, you go back and you find those jottings. You can sort of put them together, and voila, you have your. As far as writing, going beyond writing 250-word reviews goes, yes, writing is a very, very daunting journey. I can vouch for that myself. I am a journalist. I have spent my entire life writing 300-word copies. And for me to start writing a book where you are looking at 40, 50, 60,000 words was very daunting. And the way I looked at it is, I broke it down like a good journalist. I would not look at the 60,000 word end result. I would say every day I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to write only 200 words, but every single day. And before you know it, at the end of maybe 2 months or 3 months, you've already hit 25,000. Once you hit that psychological barrier of 25,000 words, then going from 25 to 35 and from 35 to 60 is much easier, because you're in the momentum. And so my advice, from my very, very sort of so far not very distinguished journey as an author, I can only say that just keep writing every day, even if you don't like what you write.
Nandini ji, no false modesty here. You're spectacularly successful and good. So no false modesty here. What you said about reviewing, I think, is spot on. It is so, I think, pertinent, the points that you made, and I hope our viewers will take away some points on how to write or how to even get about writing reviews. Again, as with anything else, the more you write reviews, the better you will become at it, and the faster the reviews will come. I can guarantee it, if you have not written a review earlier or before, then the first review will be incredibly painful and time-consuming and frustrating. But like anything else, it takes time. Craft takes time. If you don't believe it, you can go back to the Mahabharata and you can hear what Krishna told Arjun when Duryodhan and Bhim were fighting their last battle. He said, in a battle between skill and strength, skill, practice will always win. So don't take my words for it. Take the words of someone, an order of magnitude infinitely more, wise than all of us. Rahul, Vikrant, Sai, the same questions. How does one review? How does one go from writing articles to full-length books? How does one, we'd love to hear, for example, Vikrant, your experiences on translations, right? You are a I can tell you, my elder daughter read your translation of Shivaji, the great Maratha, and she was blown away by it. I mean, so obviously, so much of the spirit of the original book was retained in the translation that she has said that this is perhaps the best biography or that I've read. So all of you, please share something.
Thanks, Abhinav. I will give some points. I think Nandini put it beautifully. So in terms of how to review, I don't think I can add there. I want to add a few points about my experience. Before that, I wanted to make one point about the Reviewers Club, and I hope everybody is doing that. All the books I received, I've given it forward to a lot of people. In fact, most of the books are not with me. In fact, in the last 3 years, I gave almost around 400 books. I get a lot of books from publishers, from various people, and I gave it to senior citizens' homes where people loved reading them, to friends, so that they can actually read and then pass it on to other people rather than just storing it at home and making it look like a wonderful library. So I encourage everybody to give it forward after you have read the book, so that more people can read that. That's my especially ones which I have received gratis from Indic, from publishers, from other people who have sent it for reviews. On writing, I wanted to share with Abhinav for the benefit of people. If there is a topic which is very close to your heart, as it was the case for me and Nilesh when we were looking at the journey of Ram, I think the simple way was to really experience it oneself. And as Nandini said, write it from the heart. What is coming to your mind every day? And I think that discipline which Nandini spoke about, that every day, whether it's 200 words or 500 or 1,000 words, just write every day. It's not about going to the hills and getting some inspiration, sitting and watching the Himalayas. It doesn't happen. So the sheer discipline of putting pen to paper, or on the laptop, and just writing what is coming to in your mind, in your heart, and just articulating that in words, I think was a great starting point. We can edit, we can look at the language, we can look at the structure and other things later on. But when one writes from heart, actually it comes out so beautifully that most times even the editing is not able to do justice to it. So that to me is, and I think coming back to translations, Abhinav, one of the things I would request a lot of people to look at, amazing literature in India, and it happens by reading the original and again writing it from the heart, because I'm not doing a transliteration. I'm translating what the Marathi author has written in my own words, which I feel is the way I want to let the paragraph or the sentence or the page be read by the English author. And I think that is why, like your daughter felt, Shivaji especially is one of my favorite books, Shriman Yogi. Those who can read Marathi, I mean, they should read Ranjit Desai's Shriman Yogi. But it has come about because when you get emotionally attached to the book and then you translate that in a language in which you are most familiar, which is English, it comes out very well as something from within. So for the reviewers, if you like a topic, like when I wrote an anthology of temples, one of the chapters I contributed was on Somnath. I went to Somnath to not only experience the architecture, the history, and the mythology. And then it came out so well because you're actually experiencing Somnath and then putting it in your own words in around 5,000 words. That was the chapter for anthology called Where the Gods Dwell. So I would urge people, if there is a topic which is close to your heart, get into it and then start putting that in words. I think a lot will come out. That's my 2 cents on writing.
No, very, very, very pertinent points, Vikrant. Thank you so much. Rahul, I think one question that people may have, which they may or may not ask, is that how does one write so as to convince people rather than make it polemical?
Right. Actually, that's what I wanted to do with my book. Otherwise, obviously, my Twitter persona is completely opposite to what I have tried in my book. On Twitter, it's without polemics, perhaps people can't imagine me. I'm always in that kind of mode. But that doesn't obviously work. You are on Twitter, obviously you are playing to a gallery, and I would be pretty much honest to admit it. You are there in that race to get RTs and to get wahis, that wow, what a befitting reply. If you happen to be a Bollywood actress, then obviously your befitting replies become news reports as well. So but that's not what you can do while writing a book. I mean, maybe somebody can even do that, and they can even try that. There is no hard and fast rule, but that's not going to add anything. If people know you on Twitter, and if people have seen how aggressive you are, how say sharp you are in cutting through your opponents, then well, what's the book going to add to that? And nobody can, at least I personally, despite being in this mode on Twitter, I cannot digest an entire book written in that fashion. So yeah, personally, even I was pretty sure that this is not what I'm trying to do. I mean, what I try to do on Twitter, I'm hardly trying to convince anyone, to be pretty honest. It's almost you are in a duel with people over there. But with the book, obviously, the idea was to convince. I mean, to not go to extreme. It comes. You have to get into the shoes of a very average person who perhaps has not read much, who is perhaps not exposed to too many viewpoints, and definitely not exposed to a particular viewpoint, which is like what we call Indic, not exactly right wing, because obviously that's not the correct technical term. But yeah, in popular parlance, people use that. But yeah, more like, Indic or Indic mostly thought process. People are hardly exposed to that. So how do you convince them? And that's almost my book is structured that way also. If you look at the first chapter especially, I actually say that I don't regret, what I experienced in my childhood, which was more of a Nehruvian result of a Nehruvian, education system and upbringing. Because you don't want, people to be put up right in front. If you're saying that, you had a very bad childhood and you want to forget and all that, you are coming from a, like, oh God, this guy is already pretty much sad in my life, in his life. What is he going to tell us? I mean, he's going to maybe depress us even more. I would say that the idea, I mean, the way to convince people would be definitely not go to the extremes, and definitely not in the very few first chapters itself. Unless it's a very short kind of a which you can't really call a book. If you're writing a 2,000 or 3,000 words kind of a thing, and you want to start with a shock value, those are different kind of tools that a writer can adopt. But for a book, I definitely won't recommend that. If you're writing to convince anyone, definitely not go to any of the extremities, even if you believe in them. And start with first gelling with your audience, even those who are not fully convinced, then bringing up elements in a very easy manner which they can be exposed to, the counter elements. And then towards late, I mean, again, don't go extreme, but you can build up an argument for that, and which is pretty much how my book has been. That was in retrospect, I won't say that was exactly on purpose, but yes, as Abhinav said in the beginning, that was actually the reason I was writing, that somebody should feel that they are having a conversation with me, on coffee or on a chai, and that was the idea I wrote. And because of that approach, it finally came into that flow which currently I am telling you to adopt when you are trying to convince. So it was not like when I thought to write this book, I had thought that, okay, I have to convince ABC, and that's why I should proceed in this manner. No, actually, I just wanted to share my story. I just wanted to talk to my friends, and I ended up saying that story, which much of the feedback, much of the reviews that I have got, they say that it does a good job at trying to convince people who might not otherwise be convinced, even say with my Twitter persona. So that's what I would say. On that, the review front, I mean, I'm definitely not a reviewer, but as an author, obviously reviews help you a lot. One of the, I mean, I was happiest when Indica took up, and told me, Abhinav told me, and Hari told me that we would be supporting you, and obviously I knew that they would be supporting me. I have been part of this book club for long. And when books started coming written by people whom I knew personally, even Abhinav, for example, or Abhishek Banerjee, then you also feel that, okay, now I should also write, so that's also an additional motivation that, that you get, that you should write. But yeah, what I was saying was that, when Indica took this up, then I was definitely, I kind of breathe a sigh of relief that, I would get proper reviews. Otherwise I was pretty confident that, being a little Twitter celebrity that I am, I'm damn sure that the book will certainly hit and sell, a minimum numbers, and at the same time it will create buzz. A lot of things on Amazon, people would either rate full or people would either rate 0. I knew that. But what about meaningful reviews? Meaningful feedback, and I was pretty happy when Indica took that, because the way it has been, the name of the club itself, it's called Hundreds Reviewers Club. So when you are being called reviewer, you would take your job seriously. Just as Abhinav said, that you cannot review like, oh, I don't like this guy, I don't like his ideology, so it's a trash book. That's not what you're going to do. So because reviewing is also an art. And that's why I was pretty much kind of happy that I would on say, for example, websites like Goodreads, I would get some decent reviews. Amazon, I was pretty sure that I can pull because of my own, but Goodreads and all, I think, like a lot of credit goes to Indica for sending the books and, making people review it. And as an author, I would only say that, a constructive feedback, it includes, areas where you think that the book could have been better. And there are reviews like that, which I really appreciate. One of the reviews that I had shared had, critical feedback that given chapter wise that, on this chapter, the narration becomes a little slow. And I appreciate that, because at some point of time, even I, as an author, I think even say Vikranji or Nandini ji or even Sai would agree that somewhere we also know where we have faltered. So when a reviewer points it out, then that's a kind of like, oh yeah, the person is right, even is not wrong, is not saying that because he's prejudiced or she is prejudiced. So the constructive feedback also helps. I mean, when you point out some weaknesses or something like that, so that I would expect reviewers to do, that it should aim to help the author. Abhinav had told me that as somebody who runs Op India, what I would say, as a publisher, I would have completely different view. Then I am looking for clicks. Then you either trash a book or you extol a book, then that review sells. But an author, I would obviously want a very, a review that helps me as an author, that helps me hone my own skills. So that's what I would say. And as I said, I'm not a reviewer to give tips on reviewing, but yeah, one thing, and definitely if there are people who might have joined Indica Reviewers Club recently and they are not pretty sure about how to write a review, I'm damn sure you guys must have read movie reviews. I mean, most of us are interested in entertainment, and we do end up reading reviews, and we know which reviews are good and which reviews are bad. So from where, I mean, because we know movies definitely better than books, at least while we are growing up. So I think that can be a good way to take some elements, like what does a good movie review does. It doesn't really go on too much on ideology. Say, what's happening currently with Kashmir Files, if we can see, all the trashy reviews are because just because they don't agree with the ideology, they are trashing it. But what's a good movie review? I mean, which talks about how good the direction is, how good how some actor or other actors have not kind of performed well, or the editing, cinematography, and these things. A book also has these elements. A book will have information or facts. A book will have narration. It will have style. It will have language. It will have the structure. So so just like a movie will have a cinematography, editing, direction, acting. So these are various elements of a book. So when you read a good movie review, that all those aspects are commented upon, and they are explained why they are good or bad, or what was lacking or not. So do the same with the books. It's don't see it as just one bunch of 250 pages, but it has various elements in it. It has some information, it has a style, it has language, it has editing as well. I know for on couple of or maybe more than a couple of places in my book, editing was lacking. Abhinav also pointed a couple of things. One place where 1977 should have been there was 1975. So that's also a good review. That editing should have been better. So yeah, so that's what I would have to say. And again, I'm pretty much thankful to Indica, not only for supporting me in inviting me today, and this is wonderful. It will help a lot of authors.
Rahul, thank you so much for those words. Before I get into the last part of this, which is sharing some links, and actually let me just say that so in the chat of this webinar, and I will be putting this out on Indica Books Twitter and Facebook pages also. links to how you can sign up for the 1000 Reviewers Club, links to our Twitter handle, our Facebook group. And on the topic of writing as well as writing reviews, one of the links that I've posted in the chat is on a weekly writers open house that Indica runs with Otis Hashmeyer, who is a Stanford Stegner Fellow. It is every Sunday evening at approximately 8:30 p.m. and I will put a link for people to register for that webinar also, and including how they can benefit from it. They can send in their writing samples, and then those writing samples are reviewed and then feedback given. So all part of a journey of making you better writers. Two questions that I still have pending, and partly because of questions that have come in through chat, I will go with you, Nandini ji and Vikrant first, which is that when writing a non-fiction book, for example, I think one of the things that daunts a lot of people is the amount of research that they feel that they have to do to get a good enough grasp on the subject before they can start to write what they want. And I'm not talking about those kind of the equivalent of what we might call as pamphlets, right? I'm talking about an honest to earth effort to write a good nonfiction book. Any suggestions that you have for people who want to try that? And it can even be that, start off with small writing samples before you venture off into a full book, which can be an order of magnitude more ambitious in scope.
Let me answer that first, Abhinav. So in there is, of course, no end to the amount of original research one could do. But what it helps, so for example, in Ramayana, me and Nilesh read at least 6 or 7 important Ramayans, the Tulsi, Ramcharitmanas, the Valmiki, Kamban, the Adhyatma Ramayana. The idea was that we wanted to first get our hands around what is it that we are trying to accomplish. It was important to get a sense of the boundaries which we are trying to embrace. So I was trying to get a sense of what am I getting into. There is an idea, there is a thought, but to articulate that thought, it was important to read a lot of relevant stuff, which will give a sense of, am I trying to accomplish something which is beyond, is it too big? Is it something which will be unending and then it will become one exercise where, there is no end to it? So first I wanted to draw the boundaries of what is it that we are trying to accomplish. So we said, okay, our boundary is that we are going to talk about the journey, the Vanvas. It's not about before and after, the Balkand or the Uttarakhand, those kind of things we're not getting into. Let's restrict ourselves to one part of it and then try and get deeper into it. That really helped us to define the boundaries. And then there were a lot of some of the critical essays we tried to read where people are talking about, like the Ramanujan's Ramayana, to get a sense of what also people say when they're talking about these stories. The third part of the research was about a lot of people who have written about Sita or Ram or the characters in the Ramayana, because that's where you also get a lot of stories which are already known. And our effort was because we wanted to discover unknown or lesser known stories. So the idea was to read known stories so that we don't replicate them in our book, and we discover unknown and lesser known stories. So that was the approach I took for, especially for this particular topic like Ramayana, because we're trying to attempt something which was otherwise known to millions of people in India. So the idea was, can you come out with something which is attractive and which will make a person say, oh, I didn't know about this. Otherwise, he's going to say, oh, this is so boring. I read it so many times. I heard it in my childhood. What's new about this?
So before I turn to you, Nandini ji, I want to thank Rahul. He has to leave. So thank you, Rahul, for joining us in this launch event of the Indica Books 1000 Reviewers Club 2022 edition. We look forward to you writing more and also bringing you back on the Indica Books Q&A platform in the coming months.
Sure. I would love to write another book, and I'm really sorry I have to, go early. It would have been really, nice to hear Nandini ji and learn more. But being Sunday, some personal commitments. So excuse me for that, and I wish the best to everyone. Thank you.
Great. So this is yes, Nandini ji. So one follow-on question that I had for you is that your trilogy, right, the Ocean Zone, the Poisoned Heart, and the King Within, they are historical fiction, right? How does one of the things that a lot of people ask, and I think a lot of people do want to do, is to go back in time, whether it is 500 or 1,000 or thousands of years back, and recreate the magic of that past, but not within the within the stories that we have read, but basically create a new world out of that that is set in that place. I'm not sure if that question is hugely vague or not, but if you can shed any light on it, because on after that, I want to ask Sai one question related to that also.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Yeah, so, very quickly, just wanted to explain how research can help you get your story. I mean, Vikrant was talking about it. He made an excellent point there. Uh, for me, actually, I'll just take 2 minutes to explain how that journey helped me. I'm a student of English literature. I didn't even have history in college. So how did I start getting interested in Indian history? In 2007, my late husband and I, we went to Ajanta Ellora, and I saw those frescoes on the walls. And you were talking about creating a world, right? You were talking about the world of you and me, normal people. How did people live? What did they wear? What did they eat? What kind of clothes did they wear? What kind of jewelry did they wear? What were their furniture like? What did the homes look like? So I looked at those frescoes, and there's only one word to describe what I felt. I was gobsmacked. I was looking at people who are like me, but who lived 1500 years ago. And I came up and I said, how come I don't know anything about this? How come my history in school made my past so incredibly boring that I didn't want to delve more and find out more? So I came back and I started reading. And before long, and I read everything. I started with Vincent Smith, and I read everything. R.C. Mazumdar, Radha Kumud Mukherjee, Rakhal Das Bandyopadhyay. I read K. Munshi. I read everything I could. A.L. Basham, whatever I could lay my hands on. For the next 10 years, I was just reading. And after a point, I realized that non-fiction history is great fun, because what Abhinav was talking about, creating that world, what it really does is it gives you a glimpse into a different world, into the world that used to be, and a world that was as, if not more developed as India is today. Economically developed, politically developed, and in so many ways creatively unbelievably developed. So that part of my journey actually took a while. But right now I'm writing a historical biography. So this is not fiction. This is 100% non-fiction historical biography. And in this case, my research is a little bit different, because here I realized that this is a character about whom the mainstream has written very little, because this person does not fit the mainstream narrative. And so here what I have had to do is go to the primary sources. And for those who are serious about researching history, I would say go to the primary source. Go and see what people who were alive back then have written. And again, there will be some primary sources people will know about. There will be some primary sources people would have ignored. So look at literature, Sanskrit literature, Persian literature. Look at literature written during that time. Look at folk art, folk songs. Look at local legends. Look at what people are talking about to this day. How do people remember this person? And why do they remember that person in that way? Very important, because it gives you, again, a window into the narrative and how it has changed. So what I'm trying to say is that there are two ways of looking at history. One is you go to your well-known historians. If you have not read history before, that's a good place to start. Once you have already done that, if you are looking for specific research, go to the primary source, because every book is a POV, including mine. It is a POV. And you need not necessarily have to agree with the author's POV. So if you want your own POV, go to the primary source.
So very useful and pertinent, right? That reading the primary sources, and I think that is so important. One thing that some people tell me is, how can you read nonfiction? It is so boring and all. And I say, well, it depends again on your point of view, your POV, whether you're finding it boring or not. But one advice that I have is, and based on my limited experience with reading nonfiction, is that if nothing else, set yourself a goal of 1 page a day. If you can read 1 page a day, at the end of 1 year, you would have read close to 400 pages. That's, I think, how every journey begins. That is how the bridge, to Lanka was built, one stone at a time. On the on the issue of recreating worlds, now Sai, I'll give you the final question, which is, it is, and we have talked about this in the past. I tried to cover this in my review of your book, Rukmani, also, was that on the one hand, if you're writing about the past, if you're writing some fiction that is derived from or based in the Mahabharata or the Ramayana or the Purans, a lot of the work has already been done for you, because people know these epics. They have a certain picture in mind. You don't have to spend pages in building up the character of Bhim, for example. On the other hand, I think the job of the writer becomes that much tougher also, right? Because how do you make it interesting? How do you make it new, while staying faithful to the epics and not bringing in distortions that we unfortunately sometimes tend to see, where modern ideologies are force fit into these epics? And I think that is one question that I have, that, say, for instance, I want to write about some story set in the times of the Mahabharata. I want to use and reference certain characters from the Mahabharata, but I want the story to be my own. But I don't want genuine lovers of these epics to come and say, क्या कर डाला तुमने, महाभारत का कुछ भी तुमने, just because you can write something based on the Mahabharata doesn't mean you can do anything and everything, right? So where does one draw that line? Because your books have, I think, done a marvelous job of treading that very, very fine path between creativity on the one hand and fidelity to the spirit of the epics on the other.
Yeah, firstly, thanks a lot for that emphasis, Abhinav. It really feels that, a lot fulfilled, the whole journey of writing. Yes, if I can, I know you're asking about the Mahabharata, but I personally learned the craft of rebuilding those ancient worlds, be it any part of the of time. Personally, by reading translations of Kalki Krishnamurtiji's novels, Ponniyin Selvan, a lot, movies coming now, and a lot of readers would know them. A lot of us have read the translation. It starts with a very breathtaking description of a normal temple car festival happening during a very popular festival in Tamil Nadu. That is when River Kaveri enters Tamil Nadu. It is an emotionally touching moment for the whole Tamil people. They go into the river before the waters touch the ground. They leave some naivedyam and all for Mother Kaveri and come back, and she enters all these canals, and all the water sources merge into one lake, and the whole description. And the novel Ponniyin Selvan starts with this description of of a festival that describes an emotional high of somebody that belongs to that region, somebody who connects with those emotions. Right. So when we write fiction, I know we are technically calling it fiction because, it's not recorded, but it's basically bringing the records alive from a perspective. So that's how we have to view fiction. If it's Mahabharata, I mean, we know that there is a lot of animosity between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So if you were to start imagining one incident where Bhima and Duryodhana would have had a disagreement in their palace gardens, and how it escalates, and how elders try to intervene and try to put dialogue, try to bring the scenes alive, right? And that itself, leads to the very effective character building, and then talk about their customs, traditions, and give view everything that is that, as you said, has been described in the source literature. Give everything a perspective. And I always give this analogy about writing historical fiction or itihasic fiction, Puranic fiction, as a Mother Ganga following Bhagiratha. Bhagiratha had one motive. He was dedicated to that. He did tapasya. His ancestors did tapasya, and during his time, it finally came to fruition. But Mother Ganga had her own plans. She was going to bless not just Bhagiratha's ancestors, but a whole population of that whole civilization. So she did not exactly follow the path of Bhagiratha, but she kept converging, diverging, reconverging, but finally reached where she had to reach. So I think we take inspiration from Mother Ganga. We have the Vyasa, Valmiki, and Kalidasa and Bhasa as our inspirations, as our destination. Like, we have to finally reach where they have showed us. But then we are free to go a little bit off the highway, explore those countryside, the beautiful countrysides, take our own time in traversing, and do our own pacing, and highlight whatever influences us, and as all the authors have told, right from the heart.
Very true. Very true. I think excellent points, all of you. We are a little over the hour, so we have to close. I hope those who are watching and those who will watch this on YouTube will find it useful, not just from the point of view of reviewing, but also from the from the perspective of learning about the craft of writing. And I think every reader has a writer inside of them, and I hope, as a result of your participation in this 1000 Reviewers Club, part of that writer also gets to find expression through your reviews, and hopefully it matures into a journey where you branch out and start writing on your own, because reviewing is an exercise in creativity. Writing something on your own is, I think, a higher order of creativity, and I think that much more fulfilling. Again, since we are talking about the 1000 Reviewers Club, firstly, if you go to our Twitter handle, our Facebook group, you will find details on how to register for that. You'll find also lots of do's and don'ts and rules. And that was after 3 rounds of editing. Trust me, there are many more rules on that club. There's also Google Groups that I have created, and I'll be adding people who register for the group, for the club, to that group. Over the next 2 weeks, you'll start to get these books, one by one and so on. Take your time to read them. You don't have to get a book on Monday, finish reading it on Tuesday, and send a review on Wednesday. Nothing like that. Some books do take a month, 2 months to read. Take your time. And we will host a follow-on session, this time with the reviewers who can bring their own perspective to reviewing, because one of the things to keep in mind also is that reviewing can help you build your own community, your own a brand, so to say. So there is lots of learning there also, and we'll have a separate session that will focus on that. And I will leave you, Vikrant, Sai, Nandini ji, with any last words.
Absolutely wonderful. In fact, I have learned today a lot. I came in thinking that I'm going to share a few, but thanks a lot for Sai, Nandini, and Rahul's insights to develop as an author. And I have to learn to become a better reviewer myself. So that is still a journey I'm going through. And I picked up a few points from Nandini on that. So hope to do a better job on it.
Thank you so much, Abhinav, Sai, I really enjoyed myself, learned a lot, and it was lovely to meet some wonderful authors, author friends as well. Thank you again, and a very good Sunday to you.
Same here.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll put this recording up on YouTube in a day or two, and then share the link again. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. Keep reading, keep writing, keep reviewing, and thank you again.